welcome to Tunisia.
Thank you.
Can you first introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. My name is Maryam al-Khawaja. I'm 25 years old. I am the acting president of the Bahrain Center for Human Rights and also the co-director of the Gulf Center for Human Rights.
You came here to Tunis to participate to the Harvard Arab Alumni Association meeting. You were on the panel. Can you give an idea to our audience on the content of the message you brought to the Harvard alumni?
Well, I had been asked to speak about what was happening in Bahrain and the way forward. And of course, I presented the case in Bahrain because I was speaking alongside a Tunisian and an Egyptian. And so I explained that in Bahrain, we're not at that point yet of transition. We're still at the point where people are working towards getting a transition. And unfortunately, very briefly, the situation in Bahrain is continuing to deteriorate. We have protests every single day, human rights abuses every single day. And the reason why the situation is so bad and it continues to deteriorate is because of this culture of impunity inside the country, but also more so the culture of impunity that exists internationally, where Bahrain's closest allies like the United States and the United Kingdom are failing to hold their ally accountable for human rights violations.
Some people try to connect the activists in Bahrain with Iran, saying that there is some sort of Shiites connection that's happening there. What do you have to answer these people?
First of all, I think it's very obvious. When you're someone who works on human rights, I don't think that Iran is going to be your best ally. That's first of all. Second of all, in the Gulf Center, we actually cover Iran as one of the countries of interest where we try to provide support and training and protection for human rights defenders inside Iran. And so how can we really be working with Iran when we're working with human rights defenders who are trying to work on human rights issues inside the country?
The fight for freedom in Bahrain has been going on for some time now. A lot of people are maybe losing patience, some others are losing energy, some of the leaders are currently in jail. Do you remain optimistic about the outcome?
I think, what I see is that when I look at the people of Bahrain and I see how despite everything they've gone through, despite believing that they have no support internationally, that nothing is going to happen in which there is any kind of international accountability for the Bahraini regime, they continue to keep going. They continue to protest. They continue to take to the streets. And so if people are willing to go to the streets and stand in front of the guns and say, I'm going to keep doing this until I get my dignity and my freedom, what right do I have to give up? Also, I think it's the main reason for this is because the people of Bahrain believe in one idea. And it's the idea that no government can outlast its people. It's going to take time, and it might take a long time, but it's going to happen if they decide that that's what they want.
What's your take on initiatives like the National Dialogue?
As a human rights group, we don't really get involved. The only statement we do make about the dialogue is that human rights and basic freedoms cannot be used as a bargaining chip in any dialogue, because these are things that are guaranteed. The only comment I would make about the dialogue is that the regime is basically setting it up to failure, because you're looking at a situation where, a week after the announcement of the dialogue, 25 people were arrested in a peaceful protest and kept in prison for more than a month. 1 week after the dialogue started, 2 protesters were killed on the streets. And so when you have widespread human rights violations happening, what kind of dialogue is this really?
In Tunisia, your center is famous through its director, Nabil Rajab. He has more than 200,000 followers on Twitter, and congratulations for that. Can you give us an update about his situation?
Nabil Rajab was, of course, arrested and imprisoned. He was, to begin with, sentenced to three years imprisonment. And then after that, it was reduced to 2 years through an appeal. He's already been in prison for about 7 or 8 months now. His situation is very bad. They're trying to use whatever methods they can to pressure him or to break him. They've isolated him from all of the other political prisoners. He's not allowed to see any of them. Even if you look at the picture of what he looks like now and what he looked like before he went to prison, it's as if he's aged like 10 years within less than a year of imprisonment. But what this regime doesn't understand is that, with every human rights defender that they arrest, they're creating hundreds of new human rights defenders. it's not people anymore. These movements, these revolutions are not about people. They're about an idea. And you can imprison the revolutionary, but you can't imprison the idea. And I think that's what they're starting to realize, that even if they put away people like Nabeel Rajab or Abdulhadi al-Khawaja or other people like that, who live for an idea, it doesn't mean they're going to stop the movement or people from going out and taking to the streets and making these demands.
Talking about Mr. Khawaja, he's on hunger strike. Can you give us the reasons of his hunger strike and his situation right now?
So his daughter, Zainab al-Khawaja, was arrested almost a month ago now. She had thrown 6 eggs at the king's palace as a form of protest for the ongoing human rights violations, and because the regime was holding on to the body of a 20-year-old boy that they had killed and not allowing the family to bury him. They held on to the body, I believe, for 10 or 11 days. And so she did that as an act of protest, and she was arrested. She was sentenced to 3 months and 22 days, and she also has several cases in court right now. Due to her refusal to wear the prison uniform, which is used for criminal prisoners, and because she's a prisoner of conscience, she refused to wear it. So they're denying her any family or hospital visits. And so she hasn't seen her 3-year-old daughter for more than 2 weeks now. And so she started a hunger strike because of that on last Sunday. Because on the same day that she was supposed to be seeing her family and was refused the visit, she was also scheduled to meet with her father, Abdulhadi. And he was also told that if he doesn't wear the uniform, that they will not allow him to see her. And he refused to wear the uniform because, again, he's a prisoner of conscience. And so they refused to allow him to see her. So he started a hunger strike as well. So they've both been on hunger strike since Sunday. Abdulhadi's health deteriorated today. His blood sugar is very, very low. But again, they're telling him that if he refuses to wear the uniform, they won't even allow him to go to the hospital.
A lot of people who are watching us are wondering in what way they can support your fight. Can you give us some guidance around that?
The people of Bahrain feel like they've been forgotten by everyone else. Any kind of actions, events, so on, that show the people that there are people who are in solidarity with them makes a huge difference. Any actions that can pressure the Tunisian government as well to take a good stance towards the situation in Bahrain can also help. I think, it's going to be very disastrous for a lot of the countries that are still going through a process of change, trying to get to the transition period. If the countries who have been through that and are in the transition period choose to become like the old dictatorships when it comes to their foreign policy. For human rights defenders to be denied access to places like Egypt, it's the policy of Hosni Mubarak. So for Morsi to be doing that now, it's kind of reiterating the same thing. What we need to see is these new governments to start respecting the rights of their own people, but to also stand in solidarity with the other people who are in the same movements demanding the same things that they demanded.